Savage CBD strives to help people by offering top quality, lab-tested, natural CBD at affordable pricing. And it really is affordable. Whether you're new to CBD or have been using it for years, you can always count on all-natural, hemp-derived CBD with the purest ingredients. Savage CBD carefully tests each batch to ensure quality, consistency, taste, and authenticity. They pride themselves on their transparency and believe that you should know exactly what goes into your favorite CBD products. With Savage CBD, you can choose from a range of premium CBD lotions, creams, tinctures, gummies, and so much more. When you look at their website, there are thousands of happy customers who've reported incredible results after using CBD to supplement their daily routine. Overall, Savage CBD's goal is to create the products that empower you to maintain your balanced lifestyle. Whether you need some extra shut-eye at night or you need to find some more calm throughout your day, you can count on Savage CBD to help you reach that goal.
And guys, just for listening to this podcast, you can save 20% on your first purchase of CBD when you use our code BRAD20. So go ahead, my friends, start your CBD journey with Savage, and they'll be there to support you with every step of the way. Simply visit SavageCBD.com to redeem 20% off your first purchase of CBD by using code BRAD20 and see why thousands of people are using CBD. Now, Kelly, I've been a CBD user for a little while. I use it when I'm out on the disc golf course. It helps me relax. It's great with muscle aches and pains, and it's really kind of replaced ibuprofen for me. So anybody that's listening to this, guys, check out Savage CBD. We thank them for being a supporter of the Nowell Family Foundation, the Bradley's House podcast, and we hope you'll support them as well.
Hey, everybody, this is Todd Z-Man Zalkins letting you know you are listening to the Bradley's House podcast.
Nothing is impossible, but certain things are highly improbable. Don't think I'll meet your kind again, not in this lifetime.
Hey guys, you must be here for the party. Come on in, make yourself at home, as you should when you're a guest at Bradley's House, the podcast. You guys are here for our 1-year anniversary celebration, and here at the Bradley's House podcast, we're having a punky reggae party of our own. Although this one is not going to cost you $5 at the door. However, if you are willing to spend $5 at the door, go ahead and click the link in our description right down there, and it'll get you to all of our spots where you can make a donation to the Nowell Family Foundation, benefiting Bradley's House directly. But for those of us who have been helping and supporting and donating throughout the year, welcome and get ready for an awesome, action-packed, super fun episode. Kelly, you were able to put something special together. We talked about this. What are we going to do? You sent me an email. You said, hey, we're having this big anniversary celebration. So I got my tux out. I got it all ironed up. I got my cummerbund bedazzled. I got it up in my midsection, right between my belly button and my titties, just how I like it. I was looking good. And I find out that we're just doing Zoom, but that's okay. I kept it on anyway. Kelly, I joked about this before, but I once was married for only 6 months, and we've made it 1 year on Bradley's House.
We have, and I can't believe you brought that up. But first of all,
sorry,
never
Kim.
apologize for being fancy. So super happy that you're all dressed up and fancy. But yeah, I get, my condolences about the marriage. But yes, I'm very proud of us for making it a year, and so grateful to all the listeners that have allowed us to make it a year, because obviously if nobody was listening, we would have stopped a long time ago. But it's been a lot of fun, and I'm really glad you talked me into it. And hopefully we're doing some good, spreading the word about addiction and the hope of recovery, and the power of destigmatization, and just realizing that we're all human beings and we all struggle with something, whether people can see it or not. And for those whose struggle is a bit more out in the open, it's okay. We accept you. We understand you. We love you for it. Get the help that you need so that you can live your best life. And And then, of course, also raising money for Bradley's House. And we're so grateful to all the sponsors that we've had over the past 12 months and all of the people who have donated simply because they've listened. It's been really great, and it's enough to justify us to continue. So thank you to everybody. And thank you to you, Jarett, and to Anna, our producer, for making this all happen.
Oh gosh, it's I don't even know what to say. A year ago, I approached you and I had this idea, and you were like, no. And then you finally said yes, and you're like, but only every other week. We're only going to do 2 a month. And then I got us up to every week. So I am extremely happy and extremely lucky to be able to do this. And for all the people that have reached out throughout the year, I tell everybody the same thing. I'm literally just like the first listener. I'm the first fan. And a lot of times, as we're having these guests, whether they're awesome musical guests or recovery guests, or I find myself listening to these incredible stories of hope and just getting to where you need to be. And I forget, like, they stop talking and I'm like, oh shit, that's me. Because I get so caught up in some of these stories and some of these guests. It's really been an awesome experience. And I look forward to rocking out at least another year here, right?
Absolutely. We've got some great stuff coming up. In fact, I just spoke with somebody about doing our first episode of the new year. I haven't even told you this, so I'll be sure to tell you offline, but we've got some great stuff coming up in this next 12 months. But, of course, in the new year, some exciting things as well. So I sure hope people continue to stay tuned and rate and review us, because, of course, that helps with sponsorships, and the sponsorships all go directly to Bradley's House. And that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's been an amazing year, and it's just, it's so great to see all of your comments. We see all of the YouTube comments. Mm-hmm. We see all of the comments, Ruff. It's really awesome to know that there's so many people, and kind of like what we thought would happen did happen, Kelly. I mean, there's so many people from so many different worlds that listen to this podcast, and whether they're music fans or people that are going through recovery or have been through recovery or have a loved one going through recovery. It's just been really cool. And I can't thank everybody enough for listening and tuning in. And the Nowell Family Foundation, because of you guys, every day we get a little bit closer. Of course, we need all the help and support that we can possibly get. So the link is always going to be in the description for you guys to share. If you can donate $1, we've got the Venmo and the Cash App on there. All of it goes a really long way. And every day we're a little bit closer to getting Bradley's House open.
Absolutely. In fact, I get this question a lot. Our budget to open and operate for the first year is just over $755,000. And right now we have just over $220,000. So we're almost a third of the way there, which is super exciting. It's been such a grassroots effort. And seriously, everybody who's ever bought a piece of merchandise or made a donation, you're all a part of making this happen. And it's a tremendous legacy. And I'm so excited to be doing it with such a wonderful community.
Oh gosh, absolutely. It's really been cool. And because you guys have been so amazing, Kelly has reached out to some guests that you've heard on the podcast before. And some of the folks that you guys have constantly been asking questions about, and some of the episodes that are the highest viewed. So what we did was we reached out and we said, hey, would you guys answer some questions? They said yes. You guys saw our posts on social media, whether it was through the Nowell Family Foundation, the Bradley's House page. I posted them in a bunch of the Sublime groups. You guys sent in emails, Facebook, Instagram, and we were able to sit down with Kelly's father and Brad's father, of course, kind of the guy that is responsible for all of this, Papa Jim Nowell, and he answered some of your questions. Of course, we had Jakob on. Oh my God, what a treat. Wait till you guys hear this. We had a chance to sit down and chat with Miguel. Kelly, when is it not fun chatting with Miguel?
Oh my God. We joke about it, but we seriously could have him on every week. He's so much fun to talk with, and the time just flies by. So yeah, it was really great to be able to talk with him again and have him answer some of the questions.
and a really powerful chat with your close friend and family close friend Todd Zalkins, the Z-Man. We had some awesome questions that came in for him. So Kelly and I are on opposite ends of the country. Our producer isn't in the country. And we've been running around the last few days to get these interviews done. So we are going to have them all set up with you guys. All of the questions are here, and we thank you for submitting them all. We got them all. We had some audio questions. It was just really a lot of fun. And Kelly, thank you for setting it up, because I know your schedule's crazy, and everybody that we had has a crazy schedule.
Yes.
Well, other than your dad, I think he's probably just kind of loving life right now. But everybody else is busier than a one-armed man hanging paper. So it was amazing to be able to get them all together and
for sure.
and ask the questions. You guys had amazing questions. So without any further ado, here are some of your questions for some of our past guests on Bradley's House. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys enjoy them. I'm going to start with one that we got from Instagram, and this came from Jill Bug 17. And Jill, you have about 13 questions in here, but I'm going to pick apart a few of them and let Jake get to it. The first one, which I thought was kind of cool, was, did you go into music, Jake, because you loved it, you had a calling for it originally, or did you kind of feel like, well, my dad was a musician and all these people that hang out that were his friends were musicians, so I'm a musician?
Yeah, no, I see. I love questions like this because, I think it is kind of if I do say so myself, sort of like an interesting story, just because it is it's sort of a weird situation versus how a normal person, I think, would get into music, and maybe not for the better, because I think most people are like, okay, I love listening to music. I want to make the music that I like listening to. I want to start a band because I have these friends who make music. We're going to have a good time. I think that's how a lot of, musicians start, but I wouldn't say that it really started like that for me. I really, I was so surrounded by music growing up that it kind of was not, I kind of didn't really listen to anything on my own because it's sort of, when your parents really like something, you want to do the opposite. So everyone around me was so into music and that kind of culture that I was very reverse from it. I always tell people I saw the movie Tenacious D and it made me understand it. That's still true to this day. And I remember being 12 and I was like, this is awesome. But still I was kind of putting the cart before the horse, and that's sort of been like the story of my entire music career. I mean, I think, your dad runs a business or something. You take up the family business. That's definitely an element of it. It seems like a path that's laid out. It's like, well, I could attempt to try this. It wouldn't be the worst idea in the world while I'm going to school. But every musician I've ever worked with, I never felt like I was exactly, it was partly imposter syndrome, like, oh man, I'm not on their levels. But also like, I don't consider myself a musician as much as I consider myself a performer and entertainer. I think I started as just, I like writing songs and, maybe this will be a good idea, a good choice. Let's just see how this goes. And then once I performed, that's what I fell in love with. I fell in love with the crowd. I fell in love with, storytelling. I fell in love with the writing aspect. And as I continue down in this industry, those are the areas I excel in the most, especially with the current project Law. It really is like a 2-person writing project. I write, a lot of the melodies and the progressions of material, and then Aiden, my partner, he arranges it and really teases out and puts in the musicality of it to make it into like an actual song instead of like a compilation of melodies. So that's kind of a long roundabout way of saying no, I guess. But yeah, definitely a kind of a weird way for someone to get into music.
But you've grown into it, and I love what you said about being a performer, because that really is something. I think when people see you guys live, they're always impressed with your stage presence. And so I think that definitely comes through.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's definitely what we're going for, is like a live experience. That's always what I put first and foremost.
Yeah, I can say that from, I saw you play in 2015. I saw Law at Alex's for the memorial show. And I
Oh, that
just
was a good
remembered,
show. Yeah, I remember that one.
I
Very
just
nice.
remembered thinking like, man, this kid owns this stage right now, and this entire audience is just like in awe watching, and the poor kid's been sitting out in his damn van for the last 3 hours because he's not allowed in the fucking bar because he's not 21 yet. So it was it was definitely amazing to see how you got up there and just owned that audience and that stage. So for anybody who thinks that Jake's just phoning it in because his last name is Nowell, that is certainly not the case. He is definitely going about it his own way. So I guess a follow-up question on that, Jake, because I heard you say a lot of times when people are pushing stuff on you, your parents, oh, this is great. No, it's not. That's not for me because you like it and you are not cool. Now that you're starting to get a little older and you're starting to get more into the music, do you find yourself opening up more to Sublime's music and listening to it a little bit more and taking a different appreciation for it than you did when you were a kid?
It's funny. I mean, it was always so much in the background, like it was playing all the time growing up. I think that's one of the unique things about my situation. Obviously very tragic, but more so for all the people in his family that knew him when he was alive. But I think a lot of kids grow up without a dad or a mom. It's not uncommon to lose a parent before you get to know them. But I was actually in a lucky situation. Sometimes I look at it like that because he left behind stuff to remember him by. It's very special, very, very emotional, So I always had some sense of who my dad was just from his music, and I still kind of do to this day. And I think that's where, so it was always there, and I was always familiar with the catalog and stuff. But I think today there's always that weird duality when it comes to me in talking about the topic of Sublime, right? Because the new appreciation I have for it today is that, like, I realize how just awesome and how much fun they had writing that music, and I can just anyone can pick that up if you just listen to it. Just they have so many group in references and just sometimes like an irreverence for any kind of other thing, just doing what they loved, and that's so infectious. And that's something to really connect with. And for me, the other side of it is whenever I hear the music and I start to think about it, it's really hard not to cry because it's be really emotional, because it is like connecting with this person where it's like everyone's got that whole psychological thing with their parents and stuff, so it becomes a sort of kind of journey in that respect. But the dark side of it too is kind of, I think people assume that I should just know all the songs. Like, it's funny, last night I performed with Pennywise. I got to perform one of my dad's songs, same in the end, I think it is.
What?
Yeah.
And it was really cool. Lots of fun. Good meeting the dudes from that band. I know there's that hit. I went backstage and I was like, man, I know like everybody here. There's a lot of the Sublime and Long Beach family. But what was funny is that morning is when they asked me to do it, and they're like, oh yeah, play this song. Or their manager did. And I was like, well, what song is that? I looked it up. I'm like, oh, it's a Sublime song. I'm like, oh, obviously. Like, I had heard it before, but I'm like, I don't know these words, and there's a lot of words here. This is really difficult. And when I went on stage, I had to have my phone out, and I had this, like, to be frank, like this horrible sense of like guilt and imposter syndrome and embarrassment. Like, oh my God, they're gonna think I'm not professional. They're gonna think I'm not good enough. And then there's this level of like, well, how do you not know these songs, Jake? How do you not know? I'm like, I'm sorry, I wasn't born downloaded with all the information of Sublime like into my DNA. It doesn't work like. Right. What does your dad do? Oh, he's an accountant. Okay, go repeat to me all of the statements he made last quarter. Give me go rewrite all of his paperwork. Oh, your dad made sandwiches. Okay, make me his favorite sandwich exactly how he made it. It's just it's just silly to think that. But when art is involved in music, there's that element of it being very personal. So I think nowadays, to answer the question, finally, yeah, I do appreciate it much more, and it always continues to evolve my relationship with that music.
Well, Jake, I honestly think that is one of the things that I most appreciate about your music career is that, and we've talked about this when you were on the show before, we've talked about this several times since then, but you really are playing your music that you want, that you're writing, that you feel, and, you could sell out any venue around town if you went and said, I'm going to go play my dad's songs. But that's not what you're doing. And you're making amazing music that has your sound on it. And guess what? That's what he did too. So as much as you're not out there playing every song and knowing every note, you're doing it kind of like he did and doing it the way that you want to do it. And I can't respect that enough, man.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that.
Question for Papa Nowell here. This came in from an email, actually. Was wondering if you can remember any specific moment or instance on that trip that you took Bradley to the Caribbean where you said he kind of picked up that reggae sound and vibe. Was there a specific instance, a concert? Was there something that you remember really kind of setting the light off on him while you were out there?
No, we were traveling. We had rented a boat, a sailboat, and we were traveling through the Antilles there, and we were in a little anchorage on an island called Bequia. It's not a very big island, but there was only probably 2 other musicians on the whole island. They were playing that night, so we invited them to come out to the boat, and they were happy to do that because we had an open bar, probably. But anyway, I'll tell you, it was really interesting because I had a guitar and I couldn't figure out what they were doing, and that reggae beat and everything. And Brad just and the same thing happened with Jake when we were down in Cuba. In Cuba, on every park and every street corner, it seems like there's 3 or 4 guys, local guys who are playing. And Jake just recorded them, the first ones that we came across, and then he went back to the hotel and figured out what they were doing. And after that, he played in every group on every corner we went to, and they were all happy to have him. So I guess it's something. I don't know. It didn't strike me, but it's lightning struck Brad and his son. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's no question that whatever happened, it clicked and it worked, and I'm thankful that it did. For sure. Yeah. Question for Miguel.
I can only answer one question at a time. That much.
That's bullshit. I call bullshit on that, but we're only going to do it one question at a time. But I think you're capable of it. So, okay. So here's a fun question. This came in off of Instagram. This is from Maya I Felix. Wants to know, who is Cue Ball?
I never met Cue Ball, but he was a local Long Beach rapper, and he lived in the neighborhood and would pop by and freestyle with Brad and a bunch of other guys. And Badass went on to become a big rapper. That
actually just passed away.
Yeah, rest in peace. And that was just some crazy night of freestyling. It actually goes on for hours. But Brad just loved that little snippet part, that little, so we named it after him, although Badass is doing most of the rapping.
Jeez, I wonder where those hours of freestyles are, Migs.
Somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's probably the best of it.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a reason,
Yep.
Matthew from Facebook, his question was really a comment. He said Bradley made Chubby look good. I hate that. People talk about the dad bod, right? These girls. Oh, the dad bod's so cute. They always say that until you start arguing, and then they're calling you a fat fuck. So I already know how that goes. Okay, Corey Smith asks, question for Miguel.
It wasn't cool to be vain.
Right.
When we were serious. It was like punk rock and grunge, and it wasn't like really cool to be vain. I mean, clean, neat, but not vain.
And And
it
to
was
me,
just a Soch thing to us. It wasn't like
yeah.
a rocker underground thing.
Chubby Brad is usually
Just
the
in general, it
healthier
had nothing to
Brad.
do with weight. We didn't think about weight or the shirt we were wearing or the shoes. It just wasn't like that, really. It wasn't preconceived. We just had clothes. I don't know how to explain it. And then,
No, I get it.
yeah, if you were like a ska person, you had suits and, something like that. But other than that, we kind of just hung out. It was weird. We never really got to that level of like how kids are today. It's such a crucible question, every little thing. We just didn't really give it that much thought.
Well, I do know for most of his life, Brad just wore whatever was on the floor closest to him when he was getting dressed.
We all did. I mean, it's just, like I said, it was, and they asked the guys in Mudhoney what it was like to spawn the grunge look, and they said they took a picture of us just wearing what we wore that day. Those were our clothes.
Yeah.
This is what we wore that day. It's what everybody in our town was wearing that day. It's just clothes. Yeah. I don't know. So we weren't really super vain about shit. Like, it's got to be really hard for kids, and my heart goes out to them because
all the pressure.
Yeah, luckily it was a little bit more. Our focus was just on the music and just having a good time. And we're always trying to set up events. We always had something on the horizon that was kind of exciting to look forward to. And I think that's kind of hard for kids these days. So they're like, looking at imagery on the phone. It's exciting, but I kind of worry where it's headed. And I feel bad for kids who feel a lot of pressure to look like some supermodel Barbie doll or something. It isn't real.
Right.
But
great point.
What's the next question?
All right, we actually had an audio question that was submitted from one of our supporters. Anna, we got that lined up?
Hey guys, this is Kenny from Anaheim. I'm a big fan of the pod, and huge shout out to Kellie and Jarett and everyone over at the Nowell Family Foundation. Sublime's been one of my favorite bands since I first heard them on K-Rock in the 90s. I've even got a Sublime Sun tattoo from Opie and a Sublime tribute band called Don't Push. So, my question is for Miguel. Who is singing or freestyling on the bridge of the 40-ounce version of Don't Push at about the 3-minute mark? I love that part. And also, I just want to say thank you for your part in Sublime. I know you are a huge factor in the sound and magic of the band, and millions of people love and appreciate you for that, myself included. All right, thanks for doing this. Peace.
And thank you for saying all that cool stuff, man. And that's a great question, and it sounds like you're a really big fan to go pick that out. That's a guy named Adam, who was the homie. He was dating our friend Jules, and he loved reggae. And Jules and Maggie, we called her, had moved from D.C., and they went to high school with Dave Grohl, right? So they were, so they knew when he joined Nirvana and all that. It was cool. He was in Scream.
Wow.
They knew he was in Scream.
Yeah.
And I think we went and saw him one time. She actually Maggie brought Dave Grohl to a Sublime show. We all met him. That's a true story. At the club
That's
lounge.
fantastic.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
We played to like 9 people, but
from
they
LA.
were tracking Nevermind in the Valley, and he came over and had a few beers. It was pretty awesome.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
That's some
Wow.
Worlds of Line shit right there. But
Right.
so Adam is part of that because Jules and Maggie were inseparable. They were roommates, 2 girls, and that was Jules's boyfriend, and he was our home. We hung out. And so he came by the studio, and that's how it was. But we just threw him on the track. You know what I mean? So,
Love it.
yeah, we were firing one shot for peace, equality, pom pom. Remember, we always having a That's what he's talking about, and that's Adam. I can't remember his last name. It's a shame. Maybe he'll come up from the surface. Hope you're doing well out there somewhere.
Yeah, I was never sure who that was, actually. I knew it wasn't you. I thought it might have been Marshall, but that's pretty cool.
We on the original 40-ounce credits on the back, it says Adam Short because he was literally like 6'3". He was a tall dude. So
Nice.
And so we couldn't think of his last name. I think it was Brad. Just Adam Short, like Martin Short or something.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
This came in from Eric S. on Facebook. Question for Todd. I've been sober for 2 years now, finally, after 6 years of trying with relapses every few months. I feel that life is finally behind me, and I've never felt better. What are some things that you had to do? I had to eliminate a lot of my old friends and things that we would do together, specifically our college football tickets, as I didn't think tailgating sober would work for me. Did you experience any of this? Not being able to hang out with an old crowd, do the things that you used to do, and how did you offset that?
That's a loaded question. So, so there's a common thing that's said in recovery. It's that we have to change just a few things. That's called everything, and a lot of it is we change the places we go, the people we see, and the things that we do. Especially early on in recovery. I don't want to, this is such a good question. And it sounds to me like this guy, first off, congratulations on your 2 years of recovery. That's absolutely amazing. And I think that as we move along more, we get a little bit more comfortable in our skin, and we aren't so much triggered by drinking, etc. But, we have to be careful as far as the environments that we put ourselves in. And, my story was I couldn't even really go back to Long Beach for at least, 12, 13 months. I think I went and made my amends to Mud Lowther, and I made my amends to Papa Nowell and Janie Nowell. But other than that, I really just stayed close to my recovery down in Laguna Beach. I don't know if I'm even answering this question very well. In fact, I'd almost like to start over.
I think you're doing great, honestly.
Okay, so he asked, he's finally got a couple of years sober, right? But he's asking about what needed to be changed. Am I right?
Well, I guess what he's saying is he found that he had to kind of eliminate some of his old friends and some of the old stuff.
That's right. Oh, shit.
I guess they had college football tickets. And, and he doesn't go do that anymore. And he was wondering if you found yourself in some similar situations.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, so we'll do a little reset here. Another real common thing is to go through, we go through our phones when we're starting to get sober. And my truth is that there was a lot of people, number one, that I don't think I even really knew. And there was people who I knew that were really toxic, and it was all fake bullshit friendship to begin with. And just centered around narcotics and alcohol use. For the better part, I was done with all that. And it's not, hey, I'm better than you. It's just I'm just trying to do something so different that I can't have that type of I don't know, I guess connection going on in my life. All dealers were gone, things of that nature. But one of the things that's important for me to say is that when we get sober, it talks about it in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, today that man is a free man, and he can go anywhere so long as he is willing to maintain a simple attitude. The simple attitude, for me interpreted, is that my sobriety comes first, and I can go anywhere. In fact, this weekend, I'm going to go to Jacob's wedding, and I'm assuming there's probably going to be some drinking there, but there's going to be a lot of sober people and a lot of love. And I'm there to support him and his new wife in their getting married. So I can go anywhere, because I'm a free man today. But on my first year of recovery, I was not going to weddings. No fucking way.
I'm going to start with one that we got from Instagram, and this came from JillBug17. And Jill, you have about 13 questions in here, but I'm going to pick apart a few of them and let Jake get to it. The first one, which I thought was kind of cool, was, did you go into music, Jake, because you loved it, you had a calling for it originally, or did you kind of feel like, well, my dad was a musician and all these people that hang out that were his friends were musicians, so I'm a musician?
Yeah, no, I see. I love questions like this because I think it is kind of a, if I do say so myself, sort of like an interesting story, just because it is it's sort of a weird situation versus how a normal person, I think, would get into music. And maybe not for the better, because I think most people are like, okay, I love listening to music. I want to make the music that I like listening to. I want to start a band because I have these friends who make music. We're going to have a good time. I think that's how a lot of, musicians start, but I wouldn't say that it really started like that for me. I really, I was so surrounded by music growing up that it kind of was not, I kind of didn't really listen to anything on my own because it's sort of, when your parents really like something, you want to do the opposite. So everyone around me was so into music and that kind of culture that I was very reverse from it. I always tell people I saw the movie Tenacious D and it made me understand it. That's still true to this day. And I remember being 12 and I was like, this is awesome. But still I was kind of putting the cart before the horse, and that's sort of been like the story of my entire music career, I mean, I think your dad runs a business or something, you take up the family business, that's definitely an element of it. It seems like a path that's laid out. It's like, well, I could attempt to try this. It wouldn't be the worst idea in the world while I'm going to school. But every musician I've ever worked with, I never felt like I was exactly, it was partly imposter syndrome, like, oh man, I'm not on their levels, but also like, I don't consider myself a musician as much as I consider myself a performer and entertainer. I think I started as just, I like writing songs and, maybe this will be a good idea, a good choice. Let's just see how this goes. And then once I performed, that's what I fell in love with. I fell in love with the crowd. I fell in love with, storytelling. I fell in love with the writing aspect. And as I continue down in this industry, those are the areas I excel in the most, especially with the current project Law. It really is like a 2-person writing project. I write, a lot of the melodies and the progressions of material, and then Aiden, my partner, he arranges it and really teases out and puts in the musicality of it to make it into like an actual song instead of like a compilation of melodies. So that's kind of a long roundabout way of saying no, I guess. But yeah, definitely a kind of a weird way for someone to get into music.
But you've grown into it, and I love what you said about being a performer, because that really is something. I think when people see you guys live, they're always impressed with your stage presence. And so I think that definitely comes through.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's definitely what we're going for, is like a live experience. That's always what I put first and foremost.
Yeah, I can say that from, I saw you play in 2015. I saw Law at Alex's for the memorial show, and I just remember.
Good show. Yeah, I remember that one.
I just remembered thinking like, man, this kid owns this stage right now, and this entire audience is just like in awe watching, and the poor kid's been sitting out in his damn van for the last 3 hours because he's not allowed in the fucking bar because he's not 21 yet. So it was definitely amazing to see how you got up there and just owned that audience and that stage. So for anybody who thinks that Jake's just phoning it in because his last name is Nowell, that is certainly not the case. He is definitely going about it his own way. So I guess a follow-up question on that, Jake, because I heard you say, a lot of times when people are pushing stuff on you, your parents, oh, this is great. No, it's not. That's not for me because you like it and you are not cool. Now that you're starting to get a little older and you're starting to get more into the music, do you find yourself opening up more to Sublime's music and listening to it a little bit more and taking a different appreciation for it than you did when you were a kid?
It's funny. I mean, it was always so much in the background, like it was playing all the time growing up. I think that's one of the unique things about my situation. I mean, obviously very tragic, but more so for all the people in his family that knew him when he was alive. But I think a lot of kids grow up without a dad or a mom. It's not uncommon to lose a parent before you get to know them. But I was actually in a lucky situation. Sometimes I look at it like that because he left behind stuff to remember him by. It's very special, very, very emotional, So I always had some sense of who my dad was just from his music, and I still kind of do to this day. And I think that's where, so it was always there, and I was always familiar with the catalog and stuff. But I think today there's always that weird duality when it comes to me in talking about the topic of Sublime, right? Because the new appreciation I have for it today is that, like, you know, I realize how just awesome and how much fun they had writing that music. And I can just, anyone can pick that up if you just listen to it. Just they have so many group in references, and just, you know, sometimes like an irreverence for any kind of other thing, just doing what they loved. And that's so infectious. And that's something to really connect with. And for me, the other side of it is whenever I hear the music and I start to think about it, it's really hard not to cry, because it's be really emotional, because it is like, you know, connecting with this person where it's like, you know, everyone's got that whole psychological thing with their parents and stuff. So it becomes a sort of kind of journey in that respect. But the dark side of it too is kind of, I think people assume that I should just know all the songs. Like, it's funny, last night I performed with Pennywise. I got to perform one of my dad's songs, Same in the End, I think it is.
What?
And it was really cool. Lots of fun. Good meeting the dudes from that band. I know there's that hit. I went backstage and I was like, man, I know like everybody here. There's a lot of the Sublime and Long Beach family. But what was funny is that morning is when they asked me to do it, and they're like, oh yeah, play this song. Or their manager did. And I was like, well, what song is that? I looked it up. I'm like, oh, it's a Sublime song. I'm like, oh, obviously. And like, I had heard it before, but I'm like, I don't know these words. And there's a lot of words here. This is really difficult. And when I went on stage, I had to have my phone out. And I had this, like, to be frank, like this horrible sense of like guilt and imposter syndrome and embarrassment. Like, oh my God, they're going to think I'm not professional. They're going to think I'm not good enough. And then there's this level of like, well, how do you not know these songs, Jake? How do you not know? I'm like, I'm sorry, I wasn't born downloaded with all the information of Sublime like into my DNA. It doesn't work like what does your dad do? Oh, he's an accountant. Okay, go repeat to me all of the statements he made last quarter. You know, give me go rewrite all of his paperwork. Oh, your dad made sandwiches. Okay, make me his favorite sandwich exactly how he made it. You know, it's just it's just silly to think that. But when art is involved in music, there's that element of it being very personal. So. I think nowadays, to answer the question, finally, yeah, I do appreciate it much more, and it always continues to evolve my relationship with that music.
Well, Jake, I honestly think that is one of the things that I most appreciate about your music career is that, and we've talked about this when you were on the show before, we've talked about this several times since then, but you really are playing your music that you want, that you're writing, that you feel, and, you know, you could sell out any venue around town if you went and said, I'm going to go play my dad's songs. But that's not what you're doing. And you're making amazing music that has your sound on it. And guess what? That's what he did too. So as much as you're not out there playing every song and knowing every note, you know, you're doing it kind of like he did and doing it the way that you want to do it. And I can't respect that enough, man.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that.
This is a fun question that came in, and it was kind of for anybody, but we all know that you have that world famous Sublime room. Do you have, sorry, this came from William from Facebook. Question for Pop and Old. Do you have a favorite piece of Sublime memorabilia? Is there something that you would consider the cream of your collection?
Well, we just got a nice deal from Universal there for selling 15 million. Is that what it is?
18.
Yeah, and that's nice to have. Before that, I had one for years that said 10. So I don't know what happened, but I guess they finally woke up and decided they ought to give us something else. But you know, other than that, of course, you know, I have to end it up with Brad's guitar, and everybody likes to come and play it. You know, the other guitar, you know, he was like any other guitar player. You know, he must have had a dozen of them, you know, laying around the room. And so when he died, I gave most of it away to the relatives and things. So I'm not sure who has what anymore. I think Miguel must have something. But anyhow, that seems to be the one that everybody wants to do, is to sit down and strap it on and play their favorite Sublime tune, you know.
The world famous brown guitar. Yeah, that would probably be it. I had a feeling that that's what you would say, but I didn't want to put words into your mouth. Question from Miguel. Jarett from Buffalo asks, this year Sublime had announced that they have sold 18 million records. Now, Miguel, what does that actually mean? Does that mean that records or stores, big box stores, have ordered 18 million copies from the record company? Is it actually tracked retail over the counter? Are double albums or box albums counted as more than one unit? How's that all break down?
Well, Papa Jim will give a better answer to that one. That math is a little bit past my pay grade. There's some kind of calculation they do with everything you just mentioned. They kind of have a formula, and they stir it all into a pot, and it squirts out 1 million records sold at the other end of the machine. But no, it's not physical, not by a mile, no way. A lot of it is, though. A lot of it is. The physical cutoff by my accounting kind of stopped around 2005, and I would have to guess we were at about 4 million physical around at that point. So that's still pretty impressive to know the physical was still a major force, and we still did a lot of units in that. How it's calculated now is just it's like a miracle, what's it? Wonderburger or whatever, miracle. How to get meat at the other end of wood plants, I don't know.
There's a formula they use for a certain number of streams. Yeah, a certain number of streams and downloads equals one album and that kind of thing.
Squirts out little miracle patties at the end.
I'm just wondering because I probably account for like 1 times platinum for all of the times I've had to rebuy the CDs.
Well, you know what's crazy, and everybody always brings up the best point too, is like when they see those plaques, invariably all my old friends, guys, 30 years, we used to stay on their floor, Sublime days, come by the house and they'll see that and they'll just go. And every single one of those person taped it for 100 people, because that was true too in the day.
Right.
Like our CDs were like the most pirated by like a mile,
Oh, for sure.
Stolen, like Beastie Boys CDs, Jane's Addiction, and Sublime CDs in the day would always get stolen. We always thought that was a high honor to be in the most stealable class of music. It was a real thing, because I had something about the fan base of those 3 bands is like, prone to minor klepto moods. I don't know.
Right. And I will say too, with the most recent, the 18 million, instead of with the RIAA plaques, instead of saying album sold, it now says album consumption. So that's
see, those are little patties. They squirt those little patties out. You cook them up, they taste just like meat. You can't tell the difference.
Oh my God. All right, question for Todd. This came in from Dave Felson on Facebook. Todd, love The Long Way Back, and I know you speak and have been active in helping people find recovery. But can you expand on what it was like to help Jakob find that recovery, considering your deep roots within the Sublime family and being so close to Brad when the world lost him? Thank you for working so hard and making sure we get to have Jakob around for a long, long time.
Well, thank you so much for that question. And I greatly appreciate you taking the time to watch the film. And I can tell you that with regards to helping Jake, it was a really, I always want anyone that I work with to have a good life and to get free from addiction, whether it's alcoholism, drugs, or both, whatever. But with Jakob, it was such a deeply personal thing for those, most of the listeners know about my experience with losing Brad and how traumatizing it was. And I'm not going to make this all about me because it's not about me. It was traumatizing for everyone. It was traumatizing for the Nowell family, for his wife, for everybody who loved him. And I loved him very, very much. And to find out that I couldn't take the call shortly before Brad died, it devastated me. And so when a man like Jim Nowell calls upon me to to help his grandson, I dropped everything. I cut off so many other commitments with regards to work. Jacob became my entire focus. And, you know, one of the things that's important for me to share with those that are listening is I can't make anybody sober. Nobody can make anyone sober. What I can do my very best at is sharing the common threads that we have with the suffering and the aloneness that we all feel when we're broke down from this disease, and how do we get out of it? How do we make changes? How do we possibly grow from this disease that is absolutely fatal left untreated? And so I probably took it more personal than I should, but then again, we were talking about when it comes to Papa Nowell, who so many of us hold in such high regard. I basically stopped what I was doing. Is like anything that I can possibly do, you tell me and I will do it. And that's just the way we roll. That's the respect that we have for the Nowell family. And I'm thankful that Jacob is sober. And I've taken a long effing way to answer that one. Boy, sorry about that.
No, it was an amazing answer.
I would like to say, too, that anybody who has not seen the Long Way Back documentary absolutely needs to check it out. It is such a powerful film. And for anybody who's a Sublime fan, of course, there's so much Sublime history there. It's a must-see. Anybody in recovery or who has a friend or family member in recovery, there's so many applications to it. And I hesitated for a long time when you first came out with that film, Todd, to watch it because I knew it was going to be emotional and difficult. But when I finally did see it, I was so glad that I did, because it's really, really powerful and really well done and really honest and genuine. And so I recommend it to people all the time. But anybody who's listening who hasn't seen it, where can they still check that out, Todd?
That is all over Amazon Prime, and
Awesome.
Amazon Prime for sure is the best place to see it. And I want to say one more thing really quick is I can recall after getting the call from Jim that I was physically shaking, that I was scared. I was overjoyed, though, that he would want me to be involved with his recovery. And I think so much was being brought up from the combination of the trauma of losing Brad, with my getting my footing back in my life and having the ability to do the work that I've done with a lot of people, but to apply it with Jacob. It was something that really shook me to my core. And I was extremely anxious to get busy with him, because I wanted this to be a different ending, or just a different story for Jacob.
There was a sense of urgency. I do remember that. And it was just this thought of, we can't go through this again. We can't lose Jacob the same way. And so thank you for stepping in there and
100%. I'd do it again.
Okay, we've got one here from Instagram. This came in from, I'm sorry, Kylie L. Nayers. Hopefully I said your name right. Asks, Papa Nowell, do you have a favorite Sublime song that you like to listen to?
Well, I like the ones that are easiest to play. It's a lot of those songs, I have no idea what he's doing, because he's doing something and then he switches off and does something else, and and it goes all around, and I don't know how he did it. I really don't. He was just a really good musician, and he liked all kinds of music, and it was nothing for him, just to switch in the middle of a song, But I think I'm not sure, but I think they might have recorded this over on Kellie Island, about hanging around on the reef there.
Bad fish.
And that to me was my favorite,
Bad Fish is a classic. It always has been. And I know you'd mentioned before that was one of your favorites because it was the easiest one for you to play. Yeah. So,
and I've told the story to Kelly before. Janie and I were down in Belize, and on some little peninsula on the ocean. It's not where all the tourists go, but we went down there because we were going to rent a boat and sail around a little bit, and we went to a place that night, to get something to eat. And there was 2 bars down there, and on the bar next to us, they were playing Garden Grove, So we were just blown away. So you never know what's going to pop up,
Question for Papa Noel. Jarrett from Buffalo asks, do you remember the first time hearing a Sublime song in a setting like that and it really catching you off guard, or having like this moment of like, wow, that's my kid and they're a big deal. They're playing in Sears right now, or
Yeah.
or something like that? Do you remember a moment like that?
Well, it's kind of a strange deal because you want to hear them, but the first time I heard them in that kind of a setting, we were at Home Depot, and I don't know, that's nobody goes to Home Depot to hear a Sublime song, but it's. I remember my wife and I were watching the Grammys one year, and Green Day won an award for something, and we both looked at each other and said, "Boy, if Green Day can win a award, then Sublime certainly will." And of course, later on they did. But that's when we first realized that other groups couldn't do what Brad and his guys were doing.
No, that's for sure. Absolutely. And as much as I love Sublime and everything about the music, it doesn't really scream Home Depot to me either. So yeah, I don't see I wouldn't see any of those guys in Home Depot unless they were lost. But but that's okay.
I want to tell you though, Bud Gaw, he worked at the local hardware store here, and in Long Beach and Belmont Shore, and then Jake later on in years, he worked at the same place, Billings Hardware, over on 2nd Street here in Belmont Shore, and they got a big kick out of knowing what kind of screws were what, so that when people came in and asked for something, they could get it for them. So you never know.
And as I recall, wasn't he like the one everybody wanted to make the keys for him, Jacob? Because he did such a good job with the keys.
There was two things that he could really do well. One was making keys, and the other was cleaning the bathroom. And whenever, and he really got a kick out of it. When I don't know why, because he didn't do it at home. But
that's why he was so good at it. He wasn't wasting the talent. He was just he was leaving it all out there. There was nothing left when he got home.
Well, whenever Billings would hire a new guy, they'd send Jake with him to show, so he could show the guy how to clean the toilet.
He's a man of many talents.
Yeah.
Well, Todd would certainly be happy at how key Jake was at his job. I'm sure.
Nice.
Ooh, try the veal. I'll be here all week, folks. Make sure you tip your wait staff. Another question for Miguel. This is actually kind of a fun question. This came in from Mark Kavanaugh. He asked, when you guys were recording with the Long Beach Dub All-Stars, were any of those songs Sublime songs that you kind of had in the works that weren't finished, and you kind of said, hey, remember that one? And then it became a Long Beach Dub All-Star song?
Honestly, no. I mean, it was actually like a decision to not do that. Maybe we were stupid to do that. No, we started over. It wasn't that hard. I really credit Eric Wilson to he's such a natural musician. He just writes new music every day, bro. Like I'm not even kidding. He's like a real true musical person. So he doesn't, he just kept writing great bass lines, and Ras had all new songs that he'd been working on. He had bands the whole time alongside of Sublime. He didn't start fresh. He'd been in the game. So no, we just moved on. The spirit was there. A lot of the formula was the same, sure.
Yeah.
But as far as trying to salvage a track, if I think of one, I'll get back, but I can't remember.
No, fair enough. I just thought, it was an interesting
It
question
is
when
an
I saw it
interesting
come up.
question, but no, we just decided to leave it all in the vault and move on. That's honest truth. And,
All right, cool.
I think a little, I was a little underrated if you consider that. Maybe people give it another listen.
Yeah.
It's extremely underrated, and I don't think it gets appreciated anywhere near as much as it should.
No, it did what it did. The new record was great too. If you haven't heard the new Long Beach Dope All Stars record, just came out
they did a
last
great
year.
job.
It's pretty good.
This one came in off of an Instagram post from F. Shavitz. I hope I said that correct. I got a lot of questions like this one, Todd, but I went with this one. So when the day comes, hopefully a long, long time from now, and you meet up with Brad on the other side, Brad has his guitar in his hands, and he looks at you and says, Todd, what do you want to hear? What's your request?
Jesus. Man, you just kind of, you guys, I don't listen to the music much anymore. I would probably want to hear him do his acoustic version of Saw Red.
There's no wrong answer.
No, I would probably want to. Jesus, you just kind of stumped me. It's funny, it just got a little emotional because I got to share this with you guys, and I'll throw in a couple more. But it was probably a couple years ago. I had dreams happen to all of us, and we have these interesting dreams every now and again that are truly, I think, God-given. But I told Jim Knoll this, and it was a spiritual experience through a dream. And I had a dream that I spent time with Brad in Long Beach for a couple of hours because he was able to visit. And all he did was he hugged me and he told me how happy he was that his son and me were doing so much better.
Wow.
And it was one of those things, one of those moments that, I can't just think that up. It was just a wonderful, powerful dream. But when you asked me this question, and I was very touched by I haven't had it since, by the way, but through prayer and meditation, Brad has spoke to me sometimes and just says he's glad to know that his son is safe and thriving. But from a sound perspective, what is there one song, or is there, what would I want to hear him play first?
Yeah, what would you, I guess, the song, it came in a million times. Your favorite Sublime song. What did you love to hear Brad play? It came in 100 different ways for everybody.
Yeah, okay.
I just like the way this one was set up because it's like, hey, I haven't heard this in, 25 years. I would really love to hear this right now.
Well, I always, Kelly knows this about me. And it's not so much an acoustic song, but I've always hung my hat on STP and Greatest Hits, and Brad was so fucking talented. He could have played that acoustically beautifully as well. So I'm going to roll with that, and certainly Saw Red, because when he and I were inebriated one night, he did that one for me in private. I have a tape of it somewhere.
Okay, don't be saying that, because now we're going to start getting messages from people saying, where is it? They'll be waiting outside your front door.
Well, no, and I'm well aware of that. And that's one of those things. I gave Papanola a micro cassette of it years ago. And I know that he had a chance to, it was actually a conversation, pretty heavy stuff. It was nothing I would ever reveal publicly. It would be more Kelly for you and for the family. But he was talking about his love for his dad. And long time ago. Yeah, no, that one's not coming out publicly.
Well, at least maybe the song anyway. I'm sure people would like to hear it.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, Papa Noel's a man that's impossible not to love. I tell Kelly all of the time. We did have a question, and I think it came in from Miguel for some reason, and I didn't bring it up. But we did have a question come through on Facebook, and they asked if Brad ever had any real jobs. Being a musician is not a real job. So did Brad ever have any of those summer jobs? Was he flipping burgers or delivering pizzas anywhere?
Well, we lived in Seal Beach for a while. I built a house down there, and more of a spec house, but it didn't sell right away, so we moved into it. And it was just a half a block down from I guess it's the subway over there on Pacific Coast Highway.
Yeah, but it was Taco Bell back then.
Yeah, so he went over there, and they gave him the hat and the outfit and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't really cool, So
I think he lasted about 3 weeks there, maybe?
maybe, yeah.
At the most. That might be a little generous.
Was there just a line out the door of friends looking for the homie hookup?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. This was before they started to get a lot of play on the radio, but and then after that, I thought, well, I should put him and his buddy Scott Cunningham. They were always two of a kind. I put them to work because I was a contractor. I was building a lot in town here, and I thought one thing those guys could do is, we bring dumpsters in, and all they got to do is pick up the scraps and throw it in the dumpster. How tough can that be, right? Yeah. But the problem I had was that my Spanish was very minimal, and Brad had studied Spanish all through high school and all through college, and he not only knew the Spanish that you learn at school, but he learned all the Spanish that the guys were talking on the street, and especially on my construction jobs. So what happened is every time he'd come in, they say, well, it's the boss's son, So and he speaks Spanish, so everybody would sit down and listen to him, So that didn't last very long. We had to put an end to that.
He was talking more than he was working.
Well, he couldn't help it because they all wanted to talk to him,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I'll put an end to that. I'll go over to the junior college and take a night course in Spanish, So, and I'd learn a phrase or two, and then I couldn't wait to get out on the job the next day, and I'd go out there and I'd use it. They had no idea what I was saying, It wasn't the same Spanish that they speak out on the street. Yeah, that's for sure.
Right.
Well, whenever anybody would ask me, do you speak Spanish? I'd be like, well, do you mean like sublime Spanish?
Yeah.
Or like Spanish? Because I know the words that Brad's saying. I don't know what he's saying, but I can remimic that sound back. So if that counts, then yes, I do. But I think it's amazing. And I know Kelly's told the story before that Brad used to go down and he could communicate with all the different workers, and that's why and how he got so good at Spanish.
Well, after we lost him, I was up at Universal a lot because they wanted to put some more stuff out, and so it's the usual deal, where we're sitting in a big conference room and all that, and they wanted to put some of the stuff out, but they didn't know what it meant, and they said, do you know what he's saying? I said, well, no, but I can probably find somebody who can understand that lingo and help you out, but I don't know whether he'd be honest or not,
Nor does Universal want to know what he's saying. Don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. Just sign the deal. That was I the first time I translated, I did like a Google Translate on some Sublime lyrics, and I was just like, wow. Okay, Brad.
Oh,
yeah.
This was before Google Translated, otherwise we would have tried that. Now you can go any place world and we've done some traveling, and I always tried to Google now to just get a few words, so when you're in Lithuania or something, when they're serving you can thank them in their language, and they really think that's kind of cool. But then I only have about 2 words, and that's it.
We just blew some of our younger listeners' minds. You just said before Google. They're like, before Google? That's like, that might be a new set, like BC. There's like, BG. Before, that was BG. Well, that was before Google. That doesn't count for anything.
Yeah, I was before the internet, so I and I didn't like it when we came in with all those computers, because then everybody when we were doing jobs and stuff, they wanted all on a spreadsheet, and it took me a long time. Well, Kelly would know that because I was asking her all the time how to do this. I used to write it out by hand, and it was fast and no problem, but then I'd sit there I don't know. I'm still that way. I haven't changed.
Don't feel bad. I'm the exact same way. Luckily, I have Anna, and I'll speak with different sponsors or stuff for the podcasts or for my business, and they'll be like, "Yeah, can you just get an invoice over?" And I'm like, yeah, "Absolutely." And I'm like, "Baby, make one of those invoicey things and email it to this address, please." Because I don't know how. So another question for Jake came in here from Instagram, and I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, but we got asked it a lot, so I owe it to the listeners to ask you, man. Do you have a favorite Sublime song?
Yeah, I would say that I do. I'm trying to think. It's such a huge catalog, but I think growing up, one that like stuck around with me a lot was Boss DJ, and that was a pretty big one. I think a lot of the acoustic stuff makes these real tearjerker music, and I guess just because I really had to perform it last night, I've been listening to it nonstop the last 2 days to try to get the lyrics down. Same in the end is probably like, man, this is such a good song. This is just awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll probably keep it. I'll probably keep it right there. Those are my favorites right now.
Yeah, see, I like how you said that. Those are my favorites right now. Because I also waver quite a bit. Although it's my number one's always Jailhouse. All the listeners know that. I talk about it every single. But it kind of depends on the mood that I'm kind of in a little bit here. Another question that we got. I don't know. I probably got this question 7 or 8 different ways, and I'm pretty sure that we answered it already. So no, Jake has never considered being the front man for Sublime or anything like that, as he has just spoke about, and he likes to play his music, and Law is incredibly awesome. But I do think that it is neat that a lot of people reach out and want to hear that connection. But I think Jake is pretty happy with his project with Law and what he has going on right now, as much as he would have fun playing some of those songs, though.
Yeah, and to speak on that, actually, I mean, if that's something I notice, obviously it's something people really want to hear, and they want me to be the guy to do it, to be the front man of those songs that Sublime did and stuff. And I totally get where that desire comes from, even though it's something I don't want to spend my full time doing, just because I don't think I could, I don't want to also tarnish the image, and at the same time I don't want to play to the fantasy of it. But that being said, I've recently started to perform some Sublime songs during charity events where Bradley's House and the Nowell Family Foundation are involved in some way. I find that that's like the correct arena to do that stuff. So, I mean, if we ever got the right logistics in place to set up a run of shows, or even like a tour where we are just raising money and awareness for the Nowell Family Foundation or other select charities, I would be more than willing to perform the music for Sublime songs for that kind of field, because I think not only does it make sense with what people want and the story of it and everything, me being sober now, but I think that so much of Sublime's music had to do with my dad's own personal struggles with addiction. So what better way? Just an interesting kind of setup to raise awareness, not only for what we're doing, but for the opioid crisis that we're in right now. So if you guys are out there and you want to hear me, perform Sublime song, I know that Billy Wilson's one of my good buddies, man. Get him on the bass there, maybe.
Holy fuck! You're gonna break the internet, Jake.
Yeah, no, I mean,
are you sure you want me to air this?
If you guys want that, come. We gotta show some love and support for wanting to see these charity shows for the Nowell Family Foundation. Let's make it happen.
That's a great idea. We'd love to have Billy involved.
Yeah, Kelly, you go ahead and take the rest of this interview while I breathe into this bag and try to
do it, man. I mean, we could really do it up big too, with how many bands that that Sublime had touched and gotten involved with, and how much there's like that familial vibe. I mean,
right.
I think the sky is the limit, and not only just the old ones, but newer bands that I'm friends with. I'm sure I know a lot of people that I would love to be involved with a tour, a run of shows like this, and I think it could be totally possible.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's
Public now.
I was lucky enough to join Kelly. Anna and I joined Kelly in Las Vegas for Reggae Rise Up. And I guess I didn't really know what to expect. But to see the outpouring of people, I mean, to see people breaking down into tears at the tent because of how much Sublime or the music has meant to them throughout the years. And, to hear people talk about you and Law. And then on top of it, the different musicians that, I got to run into while I was there, and they're like, oh my God, Sublime and Bradley Nowell. And it's amazing the footprint that he's left in this music scene. And, I know that yourself and your aunt Kelly you guys are extremely humble, but, I'm sitting at this festival and I'm looking at all of these people and all of these bands on the marquee, and I'm like, this is happening because Sublime happened. And that's why these bands are here. And I'm not guessing, because for the last year we've interviewed dozens and dozens of musicians that are out touring and playing and writing songs, and they all say, Kelly, your brother is, I heard my first Sublime song when I was 12, and I knew. It's just amazing, and your grandpa, the first time we had him on, he said Sublime's really a seminal band, and they certainly are. They started an entire scene, and it's just amazing to see all of this time later, 25 years later, how important it still is to so many people.
All right, we've got William Barkley from Facebook asks for Miguel, what was the writing process like? And did Brad have a song that he considered his baby?
Is there still such a thing as Facebook?
Oh,
smart ass.
How would you?
What is that? MySpace?
How would you know? How would you know, Miguel?
Is that my Facebook? Is that what you're talking about?
That's Meta or something.
My Facebook. That's what it stands for. Meta stands for my Facebook 8. My own word. I don't know.
Social media is awesome, Miguel. You should join us.
I couldn't answer. I couldn't answer on the baby. What was the first part? Your favorite tune?
What the writing process was like, and if Brad had a song that he was extra proud of, I guess, or that he considered to be his baby.
Definitely what I got. I mean, what I got was like if this don't work, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And take a welding or something, because we worked so hard on that song. We did it like 9 times. So definitely, that was the hardest we ever worked on a song that came to us like that too. And the original demo was so fast, and then it became a 3-year obsession. So definitely what I got. That's not an accident that song's so labored over. It was a lot of work went into that. And as far as process, Brad had processes, is the only way I could describe it. And I was glad to witness a lot of them and learn a lot of them. And I had my own processes too. And the two, we use them all. I mean, it's just like you see a mechanic's tools, there's one for every job, So really everything you could imagine, from forcing yourself to write a song to playing with a drum machine inspires a whole new song, playing with the band, hearing someone on the radio, thinking they said one thing, anything, everything. It was just back then, it was a complete obsession, and at all times trying to advance the writing a little bit. So whatever method was around, 4-track, answering machine messages, that's it. It was just the times. It was you just try to capture it any way you could, write it down on a cigarette pack, whatever. So there's no real easy way to say how the Sublime, there was no true method. There was methods with the S, and pretty much used them all.
Okay. I think that's fair enough. And, there were some videos released. Paul Leary talked a little bit about the recording process, and He said Brad would go walk up to the mic in the booth with his notepad, and everybody would just stop and be like, okay. And he would sit there for a couple minutes, and he would keep scratching away, didn't even have it finished. And then he would just rip off, an amazing session. So I can only imagine.
This is the thing with like those kind of stories. And of course I love Paul, but he's a showman, man. He's a rock star. He's giving good press because that's kind of like cool. It was a great story. It made me laugh. But again, there was processes. Then sometimes you walked up there, no notepad, and just killed it. Like he had it. It was all over the map. Like it looks like anything. There was no one way. It's not the Karen Carpenter story. You know what I mean? That was one event. You know what I mean? Like nothing against Karen Carpenter, but the original Karen Carpenter movie was terrible. The most tragic and cliche thing ever.
Oh gosh.
They need to redo it, make it gritty. She deserves it.
I agree.
But I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I love Paul. That kind of stuff is funny. There was some, worse stuff than that happened, and sometimes we just got vocals done too. So.
Mm-hmm.
There is a whole album, you know what I mean? It would have took a while to chip away at that album at that rate. Think about it.
Yeah, I always laugh.
It was a great story though. It made me laugh when I heard him tell that story. It was kind of
because you hear Eric and Bud both talk about heading to the studio and knowing they didn't have any music done and just being like, it'll get worked out. And I'm like, oh yeah.
You know what happened is somebody told them that, and now they say that we were working on music for 6 months. It was real raw, but we had demos, and I had been mailing Paul Leary tapes of all our little ideas in advance. He had a little map. He could show you. He had it all written down, every little idea I'd sent him. And then we had it all on tape. So it wasn't like songs, though. That's what they mean. It wasn't like songs. Like, here's our song. It was just ideas. But we had ideas. We had a lot of ideas, tons, but no real songs. And that's the fear they were trying to convey. And I was feeling it too. Like, we definitely what are we gonna do? But we had a method for that. We would just listen to the ideas, and they would just go and kind of try to take a little real rough idea from the home studio and make it a song. And they would every day, sometimes two. Because they were great ideas, we'd capture them in the moment. Just a chord change or something cool that never would be a song. But then I'd be like, well, put this little 2-minute piece on a tape, send it to Paul Leary. And he's like, that's a song. It's going to be, that counts. I'm like, okay, one on the board, So yeah, right. So it was sketchy, but we had tons of ideas. We had no shortage of ideas. We just didn't have any formal songs, and that was kind of, a little sketchy for everybody involved. But
it got done, and you know what? It worked out pretty good. That album ended up having, that ended up being all right. All right, now Todd, Jarett from Buffalo asks, you're booking a big festival. You got to pick a headliner. You got Sublime sitting on one side of the room and the Spin Doctors on the other. Who's going on last?
Oh my God.
Wait, you're saying it's a coin flip between Sublime and the Spin Doctors?
I'm asking you, man. I know that those are two that you are very big on. So.
Oh my God.
Is this a question from a fan?
No, this is just me busting your balls.
Oh, this is you. Oh, okay.
I'm Jarett.
I don't know if I want to blow it on the radio, but I love talking about the Spin Doctors because the simple truth is they absolutely ruined me, and yet I'm trying to pull off to everyone that Led Zeppelin should have ultimately been opening for the Spin Doctors. But no, if it were to be Sublime with the Doctors, I think the Doctors had better just go on down to a little coffee shop and jam, and I think I'd go with Eric, Bud, and Brad. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was just making sure.
It's all good. It's just a fun thing. I like to mess around on Facebook and pull some chains.
For the last 2 years, I've tagged you on anything Spin Doctors that has possibly come up,
yes.
including
including I just did about 25 minutes ago. Our friend George Ruiz, who's the lead singer of the band The Irie, just did a Two Princes reggae cover, and you're tagged on that, buddy. So
bitchin'. Anything doctors related, I want it.
Yeah, so you'll be able to catch that later when you're catching up on that.
Yeah, do not fuck with the doctors. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh man, you know what? Roll credits. We can't beat this,
Right? I know. That's like the quote of the show. Do not fuck with the doctors. Oh my gosh. Hey, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of questions from people about when Brad started playing guitar. And I know, obviously like the family parties, everybody would be playing. And I kind of feel like that's where he picked it up, but I don't have a specific memory of when that started. Do you remember around what time he wanted to start playing?
Well, you're exactly right. The parties then that my folks did were a lot different than the parties you have now, where you sit around and listen to recorded music. Everybody made music. They'd go out in the living room and move the furniture to the sides of the room, so they have dancing room. And we always had a piano there, and my dad had 10 brothers and a sister or two. So and everybody played anything with instruments, with strings, and I can't remember how old Brad was, but he was quite young. I've got a picture of it somewhere on my wall there by my desk with his first guitar. And how old do you think he was? Maybe 7?
It was elementary school, early elementary, I would say.
And
so, 7 or 8.
Of course, he picked it up. But what me and the folks were doing was was 5'2" Eyes of Blue. It was pretty tough. And they all had pretty much the same beat and similar lyrics and all that sort of thing. But of course, Brad, once he figured out the simple chords, then he was off and running, and he was way past us.
You had that songbook that had lyrics and also the chords written right above the lyrics. I'm sure that was.
Yeah, I had to. Brad didn't have to do that. He knew where the chords were. I still have to write it. I still have to be able to see them, in order to remember those songs. I've got a songbook with a bunch of songs in it, but my wife pointed out to me the other day that none of the writers who wrote any of those songs in my book are still alive. So. Yeah.
Well, that just makes them classics.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh
well. The old songbook. I actually I remember, probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, we actually had a Sublime songbook that we got from the local the local Sam Goody, and I remember getting it and bringing it home and being so excited. And I was at my friend's apartment, and I was like, "We got this book, man." He's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Now, just one of us have to learn how to play some of these instruments." And we could totally. I don't know why we bought this damn book. None of us play any instruments, but we've got it. And I really remember like spending like we would be hanging out with friends and be like, "Dude, do you play the guitar? You do? Yeah. Okay, hang on, we got this book here." So yeah, it was a cool piece of memorabilia, but it didn't do me any good as far as playing anything. I can't
remember the name of the company that did that songbook we licensed to, but they did songbooks for everybody, And I was like you. I saw what they wrote, but it didn't mean anything to me. I couldn't translate.
I'm like a world-class air guitar player, though. I'm the top of the line on that. So that's about it's about as good as I get. In fact, one of my friends just asked me this morning. I was playing disc golf, and he goes, "Dude, do you ski?" And I said, "No, but I am like a world-class sledder. You should see me on any kind of sled going downhill. It's
fun, yeah.
No skiing for me." Do you remember? I mean, obviously you guys are a musical family. Kelly's talked about it throughout the time on the podcast. Like you just said, at the parties, you'd move everything out. Everybody would start playing. Do you remember the time when you looked at Brad and went, "Wow, he's pretty good. He's better than I am now." Do you remember having that moment?
That's not much of a scale to go by, because I had a band in college, but all we did was play folk songs. Peter, Paul, and Mary, and the Kingston Trio, and all that kind of stuff. And that's easy stuff. There's only maybe 3 chords at the most, and they all kind of sound alike. But to sit, what amazed me is how he could just pull a tune and lyrics out of the sky. I mean, he kept a binder, that he carried with him all the time, and I think most songwriters do that I've listened to, and so if they happen to catch a catchy phrase or something while they're talking or just going through life, they run home and or run someplace private and write it all down, and but other than that, he would just come up with these things, and to me, it's a real gift, and I don't know where it came. It didn't come from me or my family, because my folks didn't play anything original. They played the tunes that were popular in the 20s and 30s, and I didn't play anything original. We just ran the recorder when the Kingston Trio was in town and steal their songs. So it was. He really had the talent, and that amazes me how people can do that. They just got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the 2nd or 3rd time. Well, Carole King, she has written hundreds of songs.
Yeah.
I don't see how they do it. To me, it's a miracle. It really is. But we're going to have to get out my wife and I both have ukuleles here, because we spend a lot of time over in Hawaii, because that's where most of our relatives are on my dad's side. And they're all coming to town in 2 days and staying with us. I'm telling you, there's a lot of people coming. So we're going to have to get out and go through our old Hawaiian songbook. That's pretty easy, because there's only 4 strings on those little ukes, So that's a much easier thing to learn. So if you want to learn how to play the guitar, just start with a uke.
That's a good advice.
Another one that's come in a few times in a few different ways, Todd, and I wrote it down here. This one came on Facebook from Kelsey. Todd, do you ever regret the Sublime is key thing? I mean, you constantly are getting bombarded with key comments, never ending.
No, because I absolutely not. And the fact of the matter is, I think I was like 16 or 17 when and so for those of you who don't know, when I use the word key, or all of our friends do, it's just, of course, it's essentially the interpretation of it's, if you want to call it rad or killer, or just it's better than good. It's just, when something is key, it just fucking rules, right? And I mean, I've literally, since like 1983, I was saying that. And so when I did the thing, when I talked about Sugar Ray and 311 are not key, oh my God. I mean, I've got more fucking emails about that. I mean, enough to make, thank God I've got a big Costco size of Excedrin in my house, because, but the answer is no. I do not regret that, because I still find it funny.
Jarett has suggested in the past that the foundation should make some shirts with your quote on it that says "recovery is key." I think it's a great idea.
I think that would be wonderful. I mean, I had a guy recently. What did he say? He said he's making T-shirts that says "sex is pretty key," as quoted by me. Like, sex is pretty key in quotes with a key on it, and it says Z-Man. I'm like, dude, that's great. I go, I'm sure my wife and mom will love it.
Yeah, that's super great.
Yeah. Of course, sex is pretty key. Everyone enjoys that.
Yeah.
Wise ass. Recovery is key, and recovery is an absolute blessing. And anyone who's struggling, man, I get a lot of people reach out to me, and I always respond, because I take pride in it, because it's what we do. I have a responsibility to do my very best to either to empathize, to have compassion and love, and to maybe offer a suggestion or two that could help the person. So that got a little off track. No, I don't regret key. Key is fucking key.
Another fun question here for Miguel. Miguel, how good was Bert Susanka's shrimp dip?
That's Bert doesn't even eat seafood. He has a song called I got me some shrimp, keep go back and back again. I forget what the song was called. It's out of print. It was a Ziggin song called Shrimp Dip or Shrimp Dip.
All right, fair enough.
It was a crazy little song. It was when Brad Conyers joined the group. The Ziggins had been broke up for a while, and then they got back together with Brad Conyers, and he was like an incredibly like blow your mind surf drummer. You know what I mean? like melt your face surf drummer. And that Shrimp Dip song, like they gave us the demo, and the snare rolls on it were so fucking psycho that we just love that shit. I mean, the whole song was great, but that was the new addition to the thing. Was Brad? He came out of nowhere, like playing like crazy.
Nice.
And just something about it. So it was just an inside joke to, you know what I mean?
Bert doesn't even eat seafood. God, I don't think
so.
Okay. I love that. This one is going to go to Corey Smith. Was there a favorite song that you guys like to play live? Did Brad have one that he wanted to fit in on every set?
They all did. I think that was a band decision. That they definitely had tunes that they kind of had to play every night. Every band has that. I mean, you got to. That's what holds us all together. So I really feel I wouldn't know. That'd be a question for them guys. Like I kind of was. The set list had changed. When I was in the band, the set list had changed a lot. When I was in the band, we didn't use one. So that's another thing. The set list kind of came in later.
No. Miguel, you keep saying you know that's a question for the band, or you'd have to ask those guys. You're in this band. You're a member of Sublime. You know that.
When people are when they talk in broad strokes, they mean the later group. I mean, you know, only 1,000 people. When I was in the band, 1,000 people in the world knew who we were. Let's be realistic. You know?
Well, you know what I mean. You were always in the band. You're always in the band. You're in there.
The period I was in the group was small, and no one was really paying attention at that time. The band that captured the public's imagination is a completely separate animal. So, no, I got to disagree. I think Sublime, the big picture in people's mind that makes people happy, is the original band, Bud, Eric, and Brad. You know,
and Miguel.
It's a beautiful thing. I don't think so. I think I'm just passing through on the side like a good.
Hey, listen, I understand your modesty,
Bobby
and
Keys, you know, I'll take Bobby Keys to the Stones. You know what I mean? Like just a good side, man. That's what it's all about. Everybody kicking in.
Yeah, I love your modesty, and we can be on opposite ends of the fence here. But as far as I'm concerned, you are.
What I'm kicking is reality. It's got nothing to do with modesty. It's just reality.
Well, I think where Jarett and a lot of people,
sunlight.
I think where Jarett and a lot of people are coming from is that your influence, your participation, your history, or all of that with the band is such an integral part of Sublime for so many people, and so yeah, I don't think that can be separated at all.
Well, cool,
and that's a good thing. Yeah,
it's an amazing thing. Well,
good. What else you got?
Let's see here. I think I've got one more for you, and then we'll let you go. And I appreciate you doing this at all for us. It's amazing. Okay. We had a fun question came in from Instagram. Asked, you know, being a friend of Brad's and knowing him personally, if he wasn't the front man for Sublime, what do you think he would have been doing?
Probably finance. And that's what he was trying to do.
You think he would have?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
I mean, why not? He would have had a lot of opportunity to get some kind of fun gig. like financing like boat companies or something. Like
Maybe.
seriously, you
Yeah,
know
and
what I
I
mean?
mean,
Like
he was
yacht, like
intelligent,
financing
sure.
yacht fleets down in Dana Point. You know, just
That's a
that
creative
guy
answer.
who still surfed and just played music and had a band, and he still would have been the same guy without fame. That's for sure.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
fact.
true. That's true.
Just would have been one of them cool professional guys who kind of has it all. Like that's,
I
I
like
mean,
that. That's
that's
a
Nice,
that's
great
for
answer.
sure. He
That's a
was
great
nice
prepared.
suit
He
answer.
on,
had
no
a
shoes.
he had a plan B. He did. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that he
that
could
was a
go
great
back
answer.
to normal society. He had skills. He had developed like college level skills to to do something productive if music fell apart. But
That's
we
a very good
definitely
answer.
weren't trying to. We definitely, you know, we definitely made a lot of sacrifices. That's for sure. And he paid the ultimate price, and I feel, you know, bad for especially you, Kelly, and your mom and dad.
Yeah.
But we just move on. We're thankful. We're
Yes.
still talking about him to this day. That keeps him alive to me.
All right, here. This came in from on Facebook. Jer Leo. Here's my question for Todd. I work in social services as a service coordinator for those experiencing houselessness. I work with people who are struggling with substance abuse disorder every day. It's wreaking havoc across the U.S., and I've personally reversed 26 overdoses with Narcan in the last year. What do you think is the most important factor in dealing with this crisis?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
My
pretty broad.
God.
But
No. Finish the last thing. What is the most important what?
what is the most important factor in dealing with this crisis?
Oh, well, for any, I hate to say this, but I'm going to, you know what? Screw it. I don't ever candy coat. You guys know me well enough. And this is such a serious, serious issue due to the introduction of illegally manufactured fentanyl. There is no solution to this crisis. There is no solution to this crisis. And I hate to say that. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. And it's because the money is too big. The cartels are too smart. They are too completely determined to flood the market. And yet people, get a load of this. There is evidence that proves that when some fentanyl has been sold that someone has died on over the weekend, addicts are seeking to find that because they know it's that powerful and that they can dance that close to effing death. And, you know, I need to say to this guy, God bless you for the work you're doing. God bless you for, I mean, you talk about, you know, we refer to it as working in the trenches. When I'm working with families and loved ones who are dying, it's trench work. And you administering Narcan is freaking trench work, and it's sad and it's heartbreaking. And I hate to say it and to be, but I'm a realist. It is just a massive beast. This thing is not going anywhere. It's only going to grow, and it's only going to get worse. And the best thing that we can do is to make recovery available for those who want it, because the statistical increase of overdose deaths due to cocaine-laced fentanyl, heroin-laced fentanyl, and just flat-out fentanyl is through the roof, and it's not going anywhere. I'm going to say this last bit. I was addicted. Fentanyl was one of my things, but it wasn't made in Mexico. I was getting a pharmaceutical brand that was it was built into these suckers. And you talk about just, I mean, it's like 80 times stronger than morphine. And I wanted that more than oxygen. It's just such a sad way to live. And I feel for anybody who's dealing with it. Unfortunately, I don't have a solution, guys. And I do not have a solution for this other than working with people who want to get well. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. You know, I get asked this a lot too, Todd, and I'm not sure from your perspective, but the answer that I typically give is, I mean, as you said, there is no solution. There's no way to fix it by focusing on the supply side. You have to focus on the demand side. You know, when the demand stops, the supply will stop.
Okay.
And there's no way to stop the demand, but I think if we can destigmatize addiction and substance abuse in general, so that people can reach out and get help without feeling any sort of shame, then I think that that's a big step forward in reducing that demand.
That part is, you're absolutely spot on. And let's talk about this for another second or two, because it's important. Resources is king for sure. Nothing. I've said this time and time again on my own program when I have my own podcast. I think I've said it to you, Kelly, when I've been interviewed, but nothing hurts me more when there's someone, a family that has a loved one, or the individual wants help, but they do not have the access, what we call equitable access to care. So
right.
People with golden PPO insurance can go anywhere and get great treatment, blah, 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 and on and on. And the people who really want it sometimes don't have the resources. It wrenches my heart because you often just can't get them into a place in time. And we should not, as a society, we should not be having this as an issue. And I want to come back to one thing that you just said, Kelly, when we're talking about the supply and the demand. America is known, hands down, as the world's most thirsty and drug-taking society on the planet Earth, period.
Wow.
And this is a statistic that is, and this you can Google this, but this is a fact. There was, when the crisis of the opioid situation was really kind of rock and rolling after this, almost like 2012 or 14. Okay. The United States consists of 5% of the world's population, and we were ingesting 83% or more of all the world's manufactured synthetic opioids. What does that effing tell you? People in Europe are like, shit, we just take aspirin. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, they have their problems too, but nothing on the scale that we have. Nothing.
Yeah.
You know,
so clearly a lot more has to change than just destigmatization.
Well, I mean, the stigma, I think more and more people, Kelly, are very comfortable with talking about and out loud about, you know what, this is a treatable illness. We need resources, etc. And that part, I mean, for God's sake, I put on Facebook the other day that my first addiction was Pez candy, and it's the truth. But you know what? I'm not ashamed of saying that, you know what, before I discovered drugs and alcohol, Pez was my go-to. See, and it's not even meant to be funny, because I wrapped it up with God had other plans, and recovery is key. And my mom believes the same thing. I like to put myself out there, and often, believe me, I get in harm's way because of it. But you know what? For all those out there who want to judge, fuck you. Fuck you. And when I say that, I say it with conviction, because wait till your son or daughter dies from this shit, or someone you love dies from this shit, or strung out on this shit, and you're like, oh, well, God, now we got to help so-and-so. And boy, we better start talking about this. This needs to be talked about. Okay. It is an illness that falls under the FDA. If you're suffering, and people always ask me this, am I going to lose my job? You cannot be fired because you seek treatment. There is, that falls under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. You cannot terminate for someone seeking help for this disease. You can't.
Right. You know, I was updating the Nowell Family Foundation business plan the other day, and one of the graphs that I had in the previous edition was the reasons that people give for not receiving treatment. And the number one reason is not ready to stop using. Number two reason is no healthcare coverage and couldn't afford cost. But numbers 3 and 4, where it might have a negative effect on the job and might cause neighbors or community to have a negative opinion. And I think that's where the destigmatization comes in, when it doesn't become, oh, you're a junkie that can't control yourself or something like that. But it's like, oh, you've got that addictive gene and you need to get some help, and we're going to support you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And forgive me, guys, for saying F you. That was so bold of me. And
no, we cuss on the show all the time.
Okay.
Like half of my shtick is dick jokes. So
to further that, Kelly, what you just said is any human resources department that's worth a grain of salt, they very well know that they cannot terminate for someone seeking help. Now, they can,
but there's still a fear from people's point of view.
Are you kidding? Of course there is. And also, you know, because they do have the right to terminate if someone, you know, has been proven over time to have demonstrated being loaded on the job, et cetera. But that's a whole different conversation. Sure. As far as the fear factor of it all, I got to tell you, I am so glad that I don't fear you or anyone else judging me because my truth is that, yeah, I almost died from this stuff, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm a drug addict, and I'm in recovery, and I don't lose sleep over that. It's a very freeing feeling. Now, I also want to say, I'm not saying this is there's no cool factor to me at all. It's cool that I'm sober, but I don't know. I just it's important for us to be able to talk freely about this topic without feeling judged, or even, here's the thing, without feeling freaking worse than you already do.
Exactly. Without increasing that shame and that,
shame
all of that.
it is so massive when you're in the disease.
Right.
That's one thing I always tell families when I'm working with them, is that our goal is to demonstrate love and compassion and firm boundaries, but not to make them feel cut off at the legs and to make he or she feel worse than they already effing do, because I promise you, they already hate themselves.
Exactly. And I think that that's a hard thing for people to understand who are not struggling with it, to realize that there is so much of that already going on inside that person, that if we respond that way, then that just multiplies it, intensifies it, and validates those feelings that they're having, when really
100%.
that's what's going to keep them from getting clean and getting sober.
100%. And I'll say this last thing, because it's such a powerful topic, that, this thing referring to essentially is judgment, stigma, etc. That old cliche, in I can never quote it right, but you just never know until you've walked a mile in another man's shoes. So I can tell you, you do not want to walk in my effing shoes, especially in the years of 2003 to 2007 when I checked in. My last 4 or 5 years were so freaking gnarly and so sick and disgusting and filled with fear and desperation and sickness. And that is what addicts go through. And so if Kelly were to see me, hey, Todd, how you doing? Oh, I'm loaded with fear. I'm sick. I hate myself. I'm ashamed. And I freaking feel like hanging myself. An addict doesn't want to tell you that because they're scared.
Right. Right. And that's heartbreaking, because if that keeps them from getting treatment, then, what a shame.
Exactly.
Dad, I have another question for you. When Brad was really getting into Sublime and having the band, you were for the most part very supportive of him, which is, getting to the point where they are now, because if they had never gotten past that infant phase, then of course, they wouldn't be where they are now. What did you think when Brad decided to really pursue music instead of anything else? I mean, obviously he still stayed in school, and that was an important thing to you for him to work toward getting his degree. But do you remember the conversations that you had with him, either encouraging or discouraging the things that he wanted to do?
Yeah, well, of course, he and I, before you moved in with us, Kelly, it was just Brad and I, and I listened to what he was doing, and as I say, I was just amazed that he could come up with those tunes, and then of course you got the band together, and with the band comes the noise, and with the noise comes the neighbors,
Yes.
So we lived in on Naples Island here in Alameda Bay in Long Beach. And the homes are, I mean, you can stand in between your house and the neighbor's house and spread out your arms and touch both houses, So, and those guys, of course, they played a lot of places where, as they got better, they'd play later and later on the bill. The best bands come out last to keep everybody there, I guess. And then they kept all their gear in my garage, which was on an alley. And then they'd come in at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they'd be all excited, and my neighbors got all excited, and so I don't think they were mad. It's just too sad that we left, but
Definitely not.
Yeah, but he, you could tell that he had it, that he had the talent, because he would come up with a new song and say, hey, listen to this one, and as I say, it's like it's really, to me, it's like magic that he could just pull that song out of the blue, and he wasn't he didn't study music. He studied finance. I think he knew he was going to be successful. He might want to know how to handle those royalties, but and you're right about the school and all. He was he was a very good student in high school. Graduated with some honors. With a ribbon on the on him when he graduated, and he went up to Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz, and basically because of the surfing, Steamer Lane and all that stuff up there. But ultimately, he was playing around town and all that kind of stuff. The town's not very big up there, and the music scene's not very big. So how long did he stay up there? 2 years, I think.
2 years, yeah.
And then he called up and said, "Oh, I'm coming home." I said, well, how come? What's the matter? Because he really liked it when he got up there. Because, well, for one thing, when you go to Santa Cruz, they don't give you grades. They give you pass or fail. So you don't have to sit around. And when he came down, he came down to Cal State Long Beach. And he all he had was pass or fail. So it took them 2 or 3 years, which they do at these colleges, to sit down, because the instructors wouldn't just say pass or fail. They give a little bit of reason why they did it. And the new school, they'd have to try to read those and figure out what the grade probably would have been in order for him to have a GPA, that they could work with. So, but at the time, when I asked him why he's coming back, he said that the music scene just wasn't big enough in Santa Cruz, and the action was in LA. So, and he was right about that. And I didn't discourage him at that time. The times when I started being real concerned, unfortunately, was when was the drug scene, in the music here in LA, and that's and then the more popular they got to be, the more they didn't buy drugs. They would go in for maybe 6 o'clock for a sound check, and they didn't get on till 11, because now they're the popular band, right? So they just sit in a room, and fans come in, and they bring the booze and the drugs, and everybody gets high. And a lot of the shows that they did weren't very good. They were because they were just too far gone.
Yeah.
But the best show that we ever saw was the last one we saw was up at the House of Blues in LA. And my wife and I figured, well, we'll beat this deal. We'll get there for sound check. So we grabbed him, after sound check, and he was so excited. He was playing at the House of Blues, and we went around and showed me all the different private rooms they had up there, and we kept him busy until he got on, and it was the best show he ever did. So I was so happy we got a chance to see that, when something that the band did when they were sober. They were so much better. The other bands on that night all pretty much sounded alike. They were fast tempoed. The people get into a mosh pit. We were up in the balcony, because staying away from those mosh pits, but they would dance around and have a great time. But when Sublime came on, the whole room, the vibe was different. Everybody starts swinging back and forth, and the girls would get up there by the stage, and just and they didn't do that for the other band. So we knew that they had something that the other people didn't have, and it wasn't the costumes, because Brad didn't wear a shirt most of the time, he barely dressed. And I said, "What's with that?"
Maybe it was the lack of costumes.
No, well, I said, "Well, what's the deal? How come, you're ruining your guitars because you're sweating on your guitars?" He said, "Well, the problem is, these different clothing companies, they compass, for their clothes. And so you can't go and wear one guy's clothes and the other guy's unhappy with you." So he said, "Oh, I just won't wear any clothes." Well, of course he wore pants, but other than that,
sometimes,
yeah,
most of the time.
But it was very interesting, and the problem that we had for the last couple of years was very severe because of the drugs, and it was very hard on everybody. It was hard on him. It was hard on Kelly. It was certainly hard on myself and my wife. Just because we never knew when we were going to get the call, when we finally did. That so many other families that have the kids that get into drugs get that call too, and you just at night you just worry that the phone's going to ring. But other than that, the music came out good.
Yeah, it certainly did. I always joke with Kelly because the Nowell Family Foundation, which you guys can visit at the knowellfamilyfoundation.org, two of the biggest sellers on the merch is the T-shirts and the socks. And I'm like, yeah, Brad probably didn't even own any T-shirts or socks when you look at pictures of him and he's never got on socks or T-shirts. And so we appreciate the support. It's awesome, but I'm sure he's somewhere giggling thinking, socks.
Well,
Go ahead, Dad.
well, he got away with it because occasionally he'd surf and kind of keep himself in some halfway decent shape, But so that helped. But you're right. His wardrobe was very light, very light.
One of my favorite YouTube videos is actually, I believe it's at the Weenie Roast, and Brad goes up to do a song with No Doubt and Gwen Stefani, and Gwen says, "Oh, Bradley, you look lovely today." and we had we had a nice chubby Brad at that point, and Brad kind of patted on his belly with both hands, and he said, "Yes, I'm prosperous." And it's always been one of my favorite. This is a good question for either of you guys, because I heard it mentioned in an interview recently, and I guess I don't know if it's true. You hear the term tossed around a lot. Did Bradley have perfect pitch?
I'm not sure. His mother did. His mother and I were high school sweethearts, and her mother was a music teacher. And you know how when kids are learning the alphabet, you have the little card, and you flip it up and they tell you what it is. Her mother would give her a sound, and she learned which note that was. So other people, they say, well, we're going to play it in D. Well, you know where D is on your guitar, so you play it on your guitar. But if you could ask her, we're going to do this in D, and she would hum a D, so everybody would be on the same pitch. And she'd just pull it up out of the air. And she was the best high school flute player in the state of California, and got a
Scholarship.
I got a scholarship to Marymount. Yeah, they I don't know. They're doing some stuff with the college down there, but they went in with Loyola, so it was Loyola Marymount. But it was just a small school across the street from Greenland, out on the Palos Verdes Peninsula location, but isolated. But she was the one that really had the talent. But what she couldn't do and what always amazed her is what Brad could do, and play all these different genres. And every once in a while he'd be over and he'd do some jazz riffs, maybe on the piano or something, and she was just aghast that anybody could do that, because she could read music and she knew how to do that, but she couldn't pull it out of the air like Brad could, like not too many people can, really.
Yeah, it was just in an interview recently, and it was actually Paul Leary who said, Brad had perfect pitch, and he said it actually, as a musician, it's not fair listening to him, because he's as good on the guitar as he is singing, and it's just, he goes, it's really not fair how good he was at both of those things, and I know that perfect pitch is not something that's easy to obtain. But I guess it's possible if his mom had it. It's certainly possible that it's something that he picked up along the way.
A lot of the guitar players do. I was reading one of Paul McCartney's interviews, because he's got a book out or something now, and he never wrote the music down. He did, he would just hum it and then add the words to it, and away they go. And the next time he'd hum the same thing, and that's as close to perfect pitch as to be able to do that. And that was the same way with Brad. He didn't he wouldn't know how to write it down. He had no interest in learning that, because he didn't have to, because he could remember the melody and bring it up anytime he wanted. That to me was very, very amazing too. I don't know how they do it. I don't know. He was really, really a talented musician. I'm sorry he didn't stay around long enough for us to get more stuff out of him,
For sure. I know I watched a documentary, and I know Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys was very similar. And in fact, he set up a recording session and had like a room full of musicians, like an entire orchestra there. And they were all waiting for their sheet music. And he just kind of walked around the room and said, okay, now you're going to go.
That's right.
And then you're going to go. And they're all just looking at each other like, what the hell is he talking about right now? But in his mind, he knew exactly what he wanted everyone's section and sound to sound like. And he just would hum it to them and then say, now do that.
What a difference! What a difference, isn't it? Like his mother always played in symphonies and things like that, but she couldn't come up. She couldn't do that. She couldn't. She had to have it written down. And I don't know whether that's a good or bad, but I'm sure glad he wrote what he did, because it's a lot of fun to listen to it, and we live on Alameda Bay here, so on nice days, we get a lot of boats going by and stuff, and a lot of them will put Sublime on their boat radios, and blast it as they go by, and it's fun,
I had a fun question that came in. And I know I kind of asked you a little bit about this the last time that you were on, but like I said, we're turning this one over to the fans. So Michael from Facebook asked, was it weird being a child celebrity for really nothing? I mean, at the time that you were a kid, you weren't a musician yet, but people knew you and wanted to know about your life. And, I had mentioned it. I had your baby picture hanging on my bedroom wall. You know what I mean? Like I had that picture of your dad with you in the backpack. That was Kelly. I told you I cut my whole fucking book up because I wanted to decorate my. I had the Foolish Fool book, and we cut out all the pictures and decorated our first apartment in them. So, was it weird for you for people to approach you and talk to you and to want to know about you as a child?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I'm gonna start by saying, like, no one is at fault at the end of the day. It's tough because I have things that I think are really cool that totally speak to me and explain some huge facet of who I am, and to be close to something like that, I'd be so curious. So I get it, and at first it's not a bad thing because it's just like, oh, these people are interested in stuff. But I would say on the whole, it was very negative. Like that kind of attention was not positive attention. Because there are people who want something from you, and there's people whose opinions of you change. And it's tough for me to even say stuff like that, because then there's also a huge camp of people who go, you ungrateful kid, how dare you, if I had it, how you had it, if only, and who's really to say, I guess, what are the examples are like, okay, some kids find out on the playground because a parent told another parent or something. That's nice. Now those kids are making fun of me because my dad died of drugs or something like that. Or now those kids, if you beat them at a game or something, it's like, well, you just think you're so cool because your dad was in a band. Like it's like, what? Okay, that's a little odd. Do
you remember any of those kids' names?
Not off the top of my head.
No, I'm just kidding.
Seriously though. I know there was. No, I wish I did. put them on blast right now. I wish I did. No, or like a waiter or waitress. We happen to mention it in passing when I'm with family members. Okay, that's cool. And then they come back with their boyfriend, and then and then also their son, and then their dad, and they all have shirts that they want signed. And it's like, okay, this is a little bit too much now. Or a girl at school wants me to be her boyfriend in middle school. That's nice. Oh, turns out it's only because her friends told her about this thing and they set the whole thing up, and we actually have nothing in common, and this is incredibly awkward and uncomfortable now. Like, just it colorized my entire youth about like this looming, hanging over thing that there's always this other thing that is gonna affect how people see me, And it's weird because it wasn't like being the son of like a humongous movie star, like a guy who's super relevant. The people who are super into Sublime, it's almost like a cult following, like the biggest cult following in the world, like Rush fans kind of, but like but like the SoCal vibe. And like I never fit in with any. People would meet me, and just like the whole Pennywise guys thinking I ought to know all the lyrics without looking at them. It's like, what? You don't surf, you don't skate, you don't do any of the California things that define California or your father's music. And it bums me out. I'm like, man, I'm sorry, but no, I'm not trying to be against those things. I don't not do those because I want to be different. it just didn't shake out that way. I'm not the guy. I'm not the inheritor of the flame here. I'm not the prince of that was promised. I'm just me, man. Like, and so it always was definitely a unique, weird challenge. It's fun to talk about and tell people because it's kind of a trip when you think about it.
Well, I think, and again, just to see what you're doing, I mean, super creative, incredibly smart, amazing stage presence. You are that inheritor of that, but you're just doing it your own way with your own style. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. And we listened to your grandpa talk about how he loved to play music, and he played a completely different kind of music. Brad wasn't playing folk tunes like grandpa was. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. Kelly, I got to ask you now, watching Jake get older, outside of the voice, which at times is uncanny, Jake, are there things that you notice that Jake is a lot like your brother?
Absolutely. I mean, there's always have been similar mannerisms and vocal inflections, just, when he talks and that kind of thing, that, I mean, it's undeniable, but you see that with lots of families. And so most of the time it doesn't seem unusual. I think it's more amplified because Brad's gone. And so it becomes this little thread to hang on to, some little special thing. But, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of similarities, which I think is such an interesting thing, since Jake was 11 months old when his dad passed away. But yeah, and I think there will always be those things, just like everybody's child has. But I will say, and I've been trying really hard not to say this, but really, like, that last answer that you just gave, Jacob, just completely justifies everything that I'm always saying about you. You really have handled it so beautifully, and I'm going to try not to go off on it, because I do have a tendency to do that. But I do think that people underestimate how difficult things have been for you, and in that regard, because most people just want to see the good stuff, and they don't recognize the bad stuff or understand it or realize the impact of it. And so, when Jarett's saying that you've become a musician in your own right, you did that in spite of all that other stuff that most people will never understand or see or know about. And I think that's something to be super proud of, So of course we all feel a bit of an imposter syndrome in areas of our life in one way or another, but you've definitely earned where you are right now. And I'm super proud of you for that.
Thank you so much. You have no idea how much that means to me. And just thank you so much.
Yeah, I just, I ask, and it was funny because the question came up because I remember, I'm that guy that goes into the YouTube rabbit holes and I just look for Sublime stuff or any type of music stuff. Doesn't necessarily have to be Sublime, but I do know, I remember that there was a video of you going to your dad's gravesite and almost like being bombarded by the people that were there, and you were just a teenager. I think you had maybe some crazy mohawk at the time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you were just you were a kid, and people are just storming and oh my God. And I'm thinking to myself wow, this is a kid who's visiting his dad's headstone on the anniversary, and people are just storming him. You might have signed some breasts that day and stuff. It was you were signing titties, man. You were a rock star that day. And I just remembered thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this poor kid. You can tell that he wants to be respectful, but he's also kind of yeah, beat it. Don't. So it was just when that question came up, it was something that I always thought about. And I have to say that
at that very show in Alex's, your set ended and you were packing up your stuff on stage, and I'm like, fuck, I have to ask to take a picture with him, and I don't want to because I'm not that guy. But I don't know, you know, I'm from the East Coast. I don't know when this opportunity will ever come up again.
Right.
So I want to do it. And I walked up and I was like, hey man, would you mind taking a picture? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. Get over here. And I was just like, all right, cool. And, you know, I never share the picture or shot. I don't even know why, but it was just one of those things where it was like the music meant so much to me, and being able to be there on that day with all of those people coming together for that. And I remembered after taking it, like, man, I kind of feel bad, like, you know, bothering him for this. Now, on the flip side, I asked Miguel, and he took my phone out of my hand and snapped 47 selfies of the two of us. And he's not making the same face in any of the pictures. He's like, it's hilarious. Like a photo booth. He's like happy face, surprised face, serious face.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so it was interesting. But yeah, I remembered thinking to myself, like, gosh, I don't ask people for autographs or pictures. It's just not something that I do, but I just couldn't pass it up with you. So I guess I am as guilty as the people that I talk about. But at least you had facial hair when I did it, right? Like you were past puberty at least. So
yeah. And it's like a respectful, you know, someone like you coming up. I don't mind that at all. It happens sometimes, just randomly walking around, like, oh my God, hey. Like if I met someone who I like, oh dude, I'm a huge fan of X, Y, and Z. Is it cool if I snap a quick pic, man? Like, and that stuff is awesome to me. And that's like where it's always like there's that line where it's like it'll start like that, and then the people who take it over the line are the ones who, like, it's always like some older like gentleman or lady, and they're like in tears. And they're just like, they reek of booze, and they just want to give me a big hug, and like, it's like, that's when it's like, oh, you're
it's all
crying
awkward.
now. I'm sorry, I don't know what to say.
Very awkward.
Yeah, it's
Very
a little
awkward
because I don't know how to be. Am I doing it already? Just am I doing a good job? Like, what do you want? Like, but and so yeah, I do love when fans are there, and just, you know, it means a lot to them, and I love it just as a fellow human, as someone who can help them out with something that's important to them. Like, fuck, I mean, heck, no problem, man. You know, like, I think it's when you brought up the grave site thing, yeah, that's one of those weird things where it's like, yeah, I don't go to visit anymore. I used to go all the time during either the anniversary of his death and birthday, with my parents, I think. But yeah, there's some fans are super nice and cool, and it was great to connect with them and that sort of thing. And some of them weren't, and wanted to give me their opinions on like how I ought to do my life and stuff like that, which is weird. And then this one time, one of my ex-girlfriends like called me and was like, I can't believe you're not here right now on this special day. I'm like, okay, I wish I had never met you. This is weird. Why would you say that? That's so crazy. So now that's so creepy. Like, I never go down anyone. The times I do go to visit are not on those days, because I'd rather, you know, everyone else has the luxury of going to mourn in peace with their own thoughts. Yeah.
Well, dude, let me tell you, and I'm gonna get some shit, but weird shit goes on there on those days, and you're doing yourself a favor.
So true, dude.
By not being there. And, you know, I told Kelly some of the stories from being there, and she's like, yeah, you know, that's why I don't go on those days. And I'm like, whatever, Kelly, like, we would know if you're there or not. You don't have any pictures, and no one knows who you are. For all I know, you were there. For all I know, you're the person I'm telling this story about right now, actually. So it was. So I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I know you got a lot going on. You're super busy, so I'm gonna give you a chance to do a little bit of promoting and plugging, and I'm gonna satisfy about like 12 different people who asked the question, what's going on with Law? What's next? Where can we see you? When can we expect new music?
Of course, man. Thank you so much. When is this airing? Because that might affect when.
On Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay, cool. That's perfect. Well, then 2 days after when this airs on Friday, we're going to be playing Venice West, a venue in Venice Beach. That's the next show you can come check us out at.
Fancy.
We're also going to be playing like a big, I think it's a Sublime anniversary show at Soma, San Diego. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's gonna be really cool. A bunch of other bands are playing. Long Beach Dub, Head PE, Fishbone. So that'll be really cool. That is in December 3rd. And as far as new music, we should have singles dropping hopefully early next year. It's been in backlog because we're working on the right promotion and trying to get everything, all our ducks in a row. But we do have a fully recorded, mixed and mastered album called Lawful Evil. We're sitting on it. It exists, everybody. It's real. And we're looking to release it at the very latest, next year. So probably summer next year is when I would see it coming out.
Great.
Awesome. And I saw that you were, did you already play at the festival? You like opened up for Metallica, right?
Oh, it was so cool, man. It was so much. Yeah, we just played Aftershock. That was in October. And definitely the biggest crowd we've played for yet. It was just enormous, thousands of people, totally packed, and just an awesome festival altogether. And Metallica, of course, did awesome. They played an amazing set.
Well, Kelly, as far as a 1-year anniversary episode goes, I couldn't ask for anything more. Your dad, Jake, Miguel, Todd, some of my favorite guests, some of our most downloaded episodes, and I know some of your favorite people in the entire world.
Absolutely. It was so great to have them all in one episode. So much fun. Really great talking with them, and really great questions from the fans too. It was really, really awesome that people took the time to come up with good, thoughtful questions.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you to everybody who has sent those questions, and thank you to everybody who's downloaded and shared and hit the like over the last year. It really means so much to us. Of course, another thank you to our sponsors, Savage CBD, and our friends over at Jerome's Furniture. Kelly, what's the website again for Jerome's?
Jerome's is jeromes.com. Super easy to find. JEROMES.com. Make sure to check it out. And especially if you're in the Southern California area, they've got, what was it, like 24 stores or something in the Southern California area. So definitely check them out.
Absolutely, guys. And don't forget to check the Nowell Family Foundation out at thenowellfamilyfoundation.org. You can pick up all your Bradley's House and Nowell Family Foundation merch, find out ways that you can get included, making donations. It goes a long way. Go ahead and share that link on your social media. Help us spread the word so we can get Bradley's House up and built. That is the goal of this podcast. That's the goal of the Nowell Family Foundation. So if you guys are enjoying what we're doing here, a like, a share, or a quick dollar donation, it goes a long way.
Definitely.
Now, we are going to end you guys with another song off of the compilation album, The House That Bradley Built. And I think, Kelly, it's fitting. I want to go ahead. We talked about this. How can we not play Rivers of Babylon? Two of our guests, your dad, Brad's son, and I just love that song.
I totally agree. It just seems like the right one, even though we have played it a couple times. It was such a meaningful song, and so many people reached out and said how touched they were by it when they heard the album, and that song in particular really spoke to them. So I think it's a perfect way to end our anniversary show.
So do I. Guys, you already know the House That Bradley Built compilation. It's available from our friends at law-records.com. Go ahead and pick that up. All the proceeds go directly to the Nowell Family Foundation. Thank you so much for a wonderful year, Kelly, Anna, and all of our listeners. It really has been amazing, and look forward to getting some more shows out to you. But for this week, I'm Jarett Orr. She's Kelly Nowell. We're out of time. You don't have to go home, but it's time to leave Bradley's house.
acceptable in thy sight, oh Lord. By the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down, and there we wept when we remembered Zion. 'Cause the wicked carried us away, captivity required from us a song. How can we sing